we're just going to take this morning as is. I just kind of told the Holy Spirit earlier, we're just going to let him kind of direct, so we may get to some stuff next week. And I want you to just hear from our missions team this morning. We went to Costa Rica. Here, y'all share. Everybody got a mic? Everybody grab a mic, just so. I knew I turned that thing on. Oh, there you go. All right. I want you to hear from them. We went to Costa Rica. It was the five of us, Gabe and Emma, who were back there in the sound booth, safely away from microphones. And yes, I got the thumbs up. And then Terry, who is out of town and on a trip. So we went to Costa Rica the 12th through the 19th. Was that right? And so this is for everybody on stage. This was our second time, right? Yep. And Gabe, it was his second time. And then Emma and Terry, it was their first. And we got to be with Ryan and Lori Bickle and their family. Also got to be with Pastor Samuel and Rebecca and their family. And it was just a blessing. So going back a second time is really unusual. First time you have no idea what to expect. Second idea, you know exactly what to expect, and it doesn't turn out like that at all. And so that's usually how things go. But it was really a blessing. So I just wanted them to each share something because many of you contributed not only financially but prayerfully so that this trip could take place. And we saw a lot of different things. There was a lot of difficulties going into this trip and to get us to that place. And at the end, I'll share a little bit about Ryan and Lori. We want to be in prayer for them. But just several things there. So this morning, I just wanted to give them an opportunity to share exactly what God done there. Reagan, this was her second time. We're going to start with you since you're right beside me, all right? And so this is Reagan's second time, and Reagan got to do something really, really unique there. So I'm going to let you just share a little bit, whatever you want to share, and if you want to share that part too.
Yeah, so I said one of the first things I said when we got there was that I felt like I knew exactly what to expect, and I didn't like that because last year was so amazing because we had no clue what we were going to do, what to expect, any of it. And so I tried to go into it with a mindset of nothing is going to be the same, and I was right. Nothing was the same, especially Tuesday. Everything went like completely messed up. It ended up being even better than what we thought was going to happen, and I was really appreciative of that especially. But I did get to do something very cool. I got to teach karate to a bunch of Costa Rican children in the teen camp, and that was very, very fun for me because you don't know, I've been doing martial arts for about 8 years now, and I'm a head instructor at Premier Martial Arts. And especially the last year, I've been thinking about leaving and moving on and just almost feeling like maybe it wasn't super important, like what was I going to do with that? And Pastor Samuel gave me a way to make it important and to use that to spread the gospel to those children. And I found out, I think it was Tuesday night, that one of the little girls that got saved there only came to the teen camp because I was doing the martial arts camp. And that made me feel special. It was like my answer prayer, like, okay, what I'm doing is important and it is doing something for somebody else. It's not just something I've been doing for 7 years. It's finally come down to, I think that's one of the biggest, and I think not my accomplishment, but I view it as one of the most important things I've ever done in the martial arts. And I've done a lot of martial arts stuff, but I think that's one of the most important things I've ever gotten to do. And just as the week went on and as things went through, I think the biggest statement and things I remembered was you were created for such a time as this. You are put in a place where you are for a reason and for a specific purpose. And faithfulness is what I know we were supposed to be talking about today, but having faithfulness through your season of life, even when you feel like it has no purpose, or you feel like it's the hardest season of life you're going through, or just it's never going to end, it's never going to come out how you want it to, you were created in this moment for the reason that you were. And I saw that through Pastor Samuel and Rebecca, the people that we helped, and them having such faith through the things they had to go through, and knowing and getting news myself the very first night we were there that having faith through certain situations, through certain seasons of life, God is pushing you through those things, and that he will use everything he's doing for his glory and for your good always. And so that was one of the biggest things I think I took away from Costa Rica is just he's going to use you where you are, how you are, for his purposes always.
That's awesome, yeah. And she's selling herself short a little bit here. 3rd-degree black belt just got that. So, so nobody messed with her. They left her alone. And so, but it was good. I mean, honestly, Reagan doesn't speak Spanish, so she was doing this thing in English. They didn't speak English, but they figured out exactly what she wanted them to do, and just watching the whole thing work was just really awesome, and it was a great blessing to everyone. Susan, you want to share a little bit? This is the second time. Susan was our primary teacher at the schools, and John, well, let's be honest. John and I will admit this. We kind of follow your lead, all right? And yeah, she kind of tells us this is what it looks like. Do this well, all right? And we're like, yes, sorry. And so we do. But of course, she's got a little leg up on us on the Spanish department, so that helps. Yeah. And so you're gonna share a little bit about?
Oh my. Every time I go on a missions trip, I wish I could take every one of y'all with us. The first day is hard. The traveling is hard. And you're like, oh. But once you get there and you start doing it, there's nothing that I can quite compare it to here in the States. Being with people who are different than you, and yet they're the same. And you learn to appreciate life in such a different way. It's such a privilege to serve. Such a privilege to serve. And I will say this, I think it was probably, Sunday or maybe Monday, I just looked around at our team. We have such an amazing group of people. Here, our entire church is amazing. And when we're away and we get to represent Lighthouse in another place, it is such a beautiful thing. Everyone on board, working together, serving, no complaining. It's hot and it's hard and there's a lot going on, and yet there's just such a spirit. I mean, I think we had Kathy all the way down to, Gabe and Reagan, everyone serving and giving, and it's so beautiful to see. It's a privilege. And I will say this, kind of tying it back to the 40-day prayer challenge. I ended my 40-day prayer challenge in Costa Rica. I knew as I was counting out the days how it would be that's where I would be when I ended it. And I will have to tell you this, talking about answer to prayer, there was a lot of anxiety for David and I walking into this missions trip. I've had a lot going on with school. As y'all know, I'm about to finish my master's program, and I'm literally in the thick of it. And heavy stuff with school. And in the midst of that, David's also been battling long COVID. And it's been a journey the last few months. And so literally when I started the 40-day prayer challenge, my biggest one was Lord David's health. And 2 weeks before going to Costa Rica, I reached out to Lori and I said, Lori, I don't even know if David's going to be able to make it. He's not well. There are days he literally can't get out of bed. I'm not sure how he's going to do. Being in a different place, the heat, the environment, it was scary. It was scary for both of us. We did a lot of praying. And that was my 40-day. I was like circling every day his health. And I was praying, Lord, would you just give him strength for Costa Rica? Just be with him so that he can enjoy Costa Rica. And I will tell y'all while we were there, David, I don't know if you were going to share this, but I'll just say it. It was literally the best week he's had physically there. Maybe it was being in Costa Rica, I don't know, but it was just, he was able to do everything and do it with joy, and just saw God's hand of blessing on that, and such an answer to prayer that I praise the Lord for. But the entire team, once again, working together as one, being there in that place, ministering to the children, ministering to the missionaries. Lori said this to us, because Lori herself has not been well. And I was concerned about her, and she said, Susan, y'all need to come because I need this as much as the people here do. So being able to minister to her and the family, they're just beautiful people who love Jesus and love to serve, and it was an honor to be there with them. As Reagan shared Tuesday, we had everything planned out. We had taken, I don't know how many copies of the Gospel of John. We took 200 copies of the Gospel of John in Spanish to give out, and we were excited to go to the high school and pass those out to the children there. And Tuesday morning when we got up, we got notification that the water had been turned off there in the schools. So we could not go. Apparently this is a normal thing, y'all. It's not weird. And everybody was like, yeah, this happens all the time. We're like, oh, okay. So they said, y'all can't go to the schools, unfortunately. There's no water. So we were like, well, what are we going to do? And so we're thinking, that's it. I guess we're just going to sit around. Oh, no. They're like, so we're going to go do a neighborhood Bible club. We did one at a daycare and 2 at a park that day. And it was just totally off the cuff, but it was beautiful because we got to see what the church does on a regular basis. Their church was founded by just going and doing neighborhood Bible clubs. And we watched the young ladies, Sammy and Onisa, I'll say her name correctly. Onisa and Sammy, they just showed us what to do, and we just followed their lead. And we're literally just on the ground in a park doing what we were going to do in the schools. We got to do right there with the children who came. It was beautiful, and it was rewarding. And just once again, seeing how God works and what the faith of a mustard seed, what God can do. So I'm just grateful to the Lord for answered prayers and for the privilege once again to serve him. And I'm telling you, if we Go back to Costa Rica again. You really should consider going. It is a beautiful, blessed experience. It was even more beautiful, I think, this time around in some ways than the first time. So I'm grateful.
The reason I was feeling better was rice and beans, right, Emma?
And
Emma was,
plantains.
yeah, she was sick of yeah, plantains. I don't like those. By the way, going door to door, we learned a new word. When they would come to, go ahead, John.
Upe.
What?
That's the doorbell. Upe.
Yeah. So we asked, what does that mean? They're like, I don't know. And Terry, being the good Southern South Georgia girl, she said it's like, yoo-hoo. And she said it's the same thing. So, yes, that was it. John is just, so Gabe went with John last time. This time Emma came with us too. And, John is just to watch John's heart and activity with these people and just see how he just jumps into everything. I really do believe he's part Costa Rican now. I'm pretty sure. And so, John, would you just share a little bit about what God did with you?
Yeah, I'll get through the tears. Don't worry about it. But my wife will testify. At my core, I'm just a kid, all the way. Thank you, sweetie. So, getting to hang out with Costa Rican kids, teenagers, all the way down to kindergartners. I'm selfish. There's no greater joy. So, playing muddy. I lied to every one of them. I didn't even know how old I was. I told them all I was younger than I was. So I learned that in Costa Rica, that I'm actually not 44.
You said 44, but
yeah, I'm actually not 44. So I'm older than that. But what a blessed place, and really to see Samuel and his family coming back. Going once is awesome. When you come back, they start, well, maybe they do love us. Maybe they do. Seeing those kids in the school. I remember their faces from a year ago, like yesterday. And the one little boy that we had stand next to Matt Hours last year and said, "Oh, gigante," and he looked up and his eyes got real big. He was there. He came to the neighborhood park, and we just went door to door, being led by two teenagers who, no fear, just walking up, upe as loud as they could. They come to the door. "You got any kids here?" And if they said yes, "We're going to be down at the park. Come on down." If they said no, "We're going to be down at the park. If you know anybody that's got kids, come on down." And they came. And they came. And I think in this country, I thought we'd be shot if we walked up to the door. And if we weren't shot, there would be just us. But there were, there were 20, 25. And moms showed up, and dads showed up, and Miss Terry talked with every one of them. And they don't speak English, and she doesn't speak Spanish, but by the end of it, they were trading numbers and Facebook, and she invited most of Costa Rica to stay in her spare room. So it's just so beautiful to see, to hear about how that church got started and all of that. We weren't even supposed to do it. And, brag on Jesus. It's awesome.
yeah, you just you can't help but let your heart just be knit with people. And really, honestly, some people go into a mission trip thinking, "Oh, we're going to go and feel sorry for these poor little people." And you actually come back like they are so wealthy in what they have in Christ. And people ask me all the time. I get asked this all the time. People are like, "Well, you pastor a church and you do counseling and you do this. How do you do all that stuff?" And I'm like, let me tell you a guy named Pastor Samuel who pastors two churches, who teaches school full time, who runs a martial arts studio, who is going to an outreach. All of a sudden he would show up with all these dresses for these ladies that would come to. They're just constantly doing something for Jesus, and it's like, no, I don't think he's doing too much. I think we're not doing enough for the kingdom. So, yeah, just very powerful. One person that I appreciate is Kathy. She has just given her heart to this. I know she's so connected to Lori and others there in Costa Rica, and Kathy's just incredible blessing every time to watch her and just see her spirit. Kathy, what did God do with you this time?
For me, just seeing some of the same people again. And they remembered us, they welcomed us, they hugged us, and just seeing the joy on those children's faces, especially at the school. They were so excited to be there, and I want to share one short little story that Lori told us about, because she was watching the children, and we took a bunch of crayons and colored pencils to give out to each of them, and they each got their own box. And I think it was the first class we had on Monday morning, there were two little girls. They were laying on their stomachs coloring, and one of them pulled out a red crayon, and the other girl already had a red crayon that she was coloring with. And Lori said they held them up side by side because they could not believe they both had a red crayon. Because normally they have to share their crayons. They might get 2 or 3, and they never know what color they'll have. But they were so excited about those colored pencils. It was just amazing to see. And there were kids that had been in the classes last year that we saw that were not going to be able to come to our classes this year. They came and begged us to come back the next day because they wanted to come and be with us again. And we thought we were going to get to do that Tuesday afternoon because they had water Tuesday morning, but then they had to close the school at noon, so we didn't get to go back. But just seeing the joy that those children have with nothing. I mean, they make fun out of anything they have. Like John said, the mud. I mean, they had more fun wetting each other, playing in the mud, and it was just amazing. And the faithfulness, like you said, David, of Pastor Samuel and his family. Rebecca had had surgery just a few days before, but she insisted on being there at the teen camp. She made lunch, she served lunch, and she just insisted that she would be there. And Lori and Ryan, I know Lori's been very sick, but she couldn't be with us 100% of the time, but she was with us a lot. And just to see everything they've done there is just amazing. And it just blesses me so much that I was able to go again.
Yeah, and that's the thing of faithfulness, which is our whole theme for today. I think about Ryan and Lori. They've been there almost 20 years. That's their home. A lot of times, I'm just going to be blunt, a lot of times missionaries, they go places, and that's never their home. That's where they do ministry, and then they come back to the States because this is home. That's their home. They've had how many children in their home? About 140 children have come through their home, fostering and different things. They've adopted children. They have the 3 kids that still live in their house right now are not theirs biologically. They only have 2 biological children. They're older. They have 1 biological child. Oh, yeah, they adopted. That's right. I always think of him biological. They adopted him as well. But they have 3 kids that are still living in their home, teenagers, and that is their home, and the faithfulness of that. The faithfulness of that. So I want to share this with you real fast, all right? If you need a bulletin, raise your hand. I'm going to share this. I'm going to ask you all a couple questions, so just hang on. In Genesis, in chapter 18, and I'm just going to move through this, God confirms a promise. God confirms a promise to give Abraham and Sarah a child, to give them a son. When that promise comes at that particular instance, that's the occasion where Sarah laughs, because it sounds completely. Now, God had promised them this before, okay? He had promised them this before, but it had been so long that this is just ridiculous now. Like, before it was like improbable. Now it's impossible. And I think God has to get us to impossible sometimes, to get there. And Sarah laughs because she's like, there's no way that's going to happen. And if you read Genesis 18, 1 through 15, it stops there. But then if you go to chapter 21, right at the beginning, and God kept his promise. Now, why does God keep his promise? Because he's faithful. God is a faithful God. And I'll share three things with you real quickly. The first one is this. Faithfulness is determined by our character, not our circumstances. It is determined by our character and not our circumstances. The reason God is faithful is because of who he is. God is faithful. And when we become like God in the sense of being faithful, it's our character that changes, not our circumstances that change. Ryan and Lori are going through terrible circumstances right now. As a matter of fact, I was hoping to surprise all of us. I had invited Ryan and Lori. We were going to pay their way for them to come be a part of our anniversary service. But because of Lori's health, they just can't do it. She and I talked this week. They just can't do it. But here's the deal. Most people in their circumstances would give up and quit with everything they faced. And we could list it. But they're just faithful because of their character. I mean, Lori, most of you have seen pictures of them. Lori lost a leg while she was there. Literally, they had to amputate her leg. Okay, that's give up and quit time, right? Their daughter had to have major brain surgery. That's give up and quit time. They have faced all kinds of disasters. And they just take disasters like it's nothing. As a matter of fact, she sent a group text to us. She said, hey, listen, we may have to go a different way to get to the place because the road fell off. Wait, excuse me? The road fell off? Yeah, like the road fell off the side of the mountain. I said, you don't understand. We don't use terms like the road fell off here in the United States, all right? If the road fell off, that's a bad, bad thing. But they're just like, we'll do something different. How do you do that? It's because of your character. Because of your character. One of y'all, in just a second, whoever wants to do it, tell me what stood out. What's one thing about their character that stands out to you when it comes to faithfulness? Any of the, Pastor Samuel, Rebecca, anything. I know you mentioned Rebecca a while ago, too. Sammy, it could be any of them. So think about that. I want to share a scripture with you while y'all are thinking. Y'all rock, paper, scissors. Who's going to say something, all right? 2 Timothy 2. Would you look at 2 Timothy 2? 2 Timothy 2 in verse 11 says, this is a trustworthy saying, if we die with him, we will also live with him. If we endure hardship, we will reign with him. If we deny him, he will deny us. If we are unfaithful, now listen to this, if we are unfaithful, he remains faithful, for he cannot deny who he is. 2 Timothy 2:13. Even if we're unfaithful, he remains faithful. Why? Because we're worth it? No, because he cannot deny who he is. That's what faithfulness looks like. All right, who's up? Did y'all elect John?
Yeah, that was. I didn't get a vote.
3 to 1.
Oh, for me, I'll pick Sammy. You know, she's a daughter of a preacher. She's 18 years old, just graduated high school. It would be real easy to stay in the States, or she's going to college in Ohio. It would be real easy to take it off, but she didn't. She led every single class, led the daycare, translated, even if she didn't want to translate because she didn't think her English was good enough. Went door to door, just never stopped. And, you know, so credit to her parents for sure, but she's at an age where it would be awful easy to walk away. Yeah. And she just keeps going.
Yeah. And as you think about that faithfulness, you go back to Abraham and Sarah. Abraham and Sarah had to remain faithful, and there were times that their faith wavered. And I'm encouraged by the scriptures, by the way, that shows these heroes of the faith that don't have halos, that they wavered, that they struggled. We all struggle at times. And one thing I've learned about faithfulness is the second thing that I'll give you, is that faithfulness is about believing what is possible only because of God. It's about believing what is possible only because of God, not because I'm good, not because I'm strong, not because I'm incredible. No, has nothing to do with me. Has nothing to do with me. I can do all things through Christ. Why? Because he gives me strength, right? Because he's my strength. So that's why I can do all things, not because I have anything in myself. And so as I think about that and I think about that faithfulness, I'm reminded, and Susan, I'm going to put you on the spot with this one. I am reminded of Amy says, Mom, Gloriana. I want you to share just a little bit about that in just a second. we saw people who we would look at their circumstances and think, I can't serve God like this. But we realize after you're ministering to people and you're learning from people that we have a God who can do all things. So therefore, I have to surrender my all things and say, okay, God, that verse, we know all things work together for good to those that love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. But at some point, you have to give him the all things. In order to do all things, I got to give him all things. And then he is the God of the impossible. And so when Sarah laughs like, yeah, I love the scripture, by the way. If you'll study those passages, Genesis 18 and then Genesis 21, every time it refers to Sarah she is not of childbearing age. But then when it talks about Abraham, it says because he's an old man. Even Bible knows not to call a woman an old woman, all right? So it refers to her differently. But it was impossible. As a matter of fact, Sarah said, how can we do this? I'm beyond childbearing age, and he's an old man. I love it. But this is the impossibility work of God. What about Gloriana? It seemed impossible, but she did.
Gloriana is such a beautiful lady. We met her last time we were there. She is an amazing cook. She actually used to run her own little, kind of like a restaurant place there. And so she invited us to her home this time. So that was such an honor to be able to go to her home. She fixed us a Costa Rican meal. She has an outside stove, cook over a hot fire outside. And she prepared this beautiful stew for us. It's a Costa Rican meal. She worked on it literally all day. And when we came there, we sat outside underneath her garage, and the chickens are running around, and they have like pigs down at the bottom of the mountain. Just a very unique setting, very different from anything. The pineapple fields are out there. You see all the pineapples, down below the mountain. So just a really neat place to be. But she invited us into her home, and it was such an honor to be there. But what the rest of the story is that she's had some very, very trying times, very difficult marriage for many years, for many, many years. Lost all of her living. Her way of life was messed up. But every place she has moved, she's been faithful to get in church, to take her children to church, to raise her children in church, usually alone because her husband would not go. So through very trying circumstances, she's been faithful to the Lord and faithful to serve us. And I'll tell you the most moving part, and I know the rest of the team doesn't understand Spanish, but I did. And she prayed over us when we came to eat at her house. It was one of the most beautiful, precious prayers I've ever heard. Just calling out to God for blessing on us and for the privilege of serving us and the privilege of having us there. And she prayed for God to work in us individually. And she called, as we were singing that song just a minute ago, calling on the name of, that's what she was doing, calling on the name of the God who has been faithful to her. She called on the name of the God of the Bible, and she called out blessing upon us there. And it was so humbling and so precious. She's raised her children in church. She has a daughter who is so faithful right there serving along with us. It's beautiful to see the faithfulness of God's people in difficult circumstances, and she was a testimony and inspiration to me for sure.
And that kind of testimony keeps you going. It's the faithfulness of other people that helps you, and it's the faithfulness of our God that keeps us moving. At what point, when you're Abraham and Sarah, do you think, forget it, give up? I quit. What keeps you going? What keeps you going is not that things are well. What keeps you going, not that things turn out fine. What keeps you going is knowing that God is going to go with you through it. And so the final thing I'll share with you this morning is this, is that the faithfulness is the key element for endurance. It is the key element for endurance. You just keep doing. Well, I want to quit. I know, I do too. But you just keep doing. I don't like this. It hurts, but you just keep doing. We have one great concern about Reagan returning to Costa Rica. Last year, she went with a broken leg, ankle. This year, she went with a broken wrist. And she's moving up, and the next place is her neck or shoulder. So we're really concerned about her going back. So they asked her, can you come back without something bandaged? And I don't know if that's even possible. She could try. But what keeps you doing that stuff? What keeps you going when you could give up? You could quit. We all went into this very tired. I think that we commented several times that all of us lately have been very tired. Why do you endure that? So, Reagan, I'm going to ask you, why do you endure it when it would have been easier to not go?
I wasn't even supposed to be there, actually. I told Pastor David like the week before that I couldn't go. I just couldn't pay for it, to be very honest. I couldn't afford to go anymore with the circumstances I was in, and I prayed about it, and there was a way for me to go. And so even with being in a lot of pain, not being able to take the medicine, even last year being that same amount of pain, it was just knowing it was being there for, it's not about me. It's just not. That basically plain and simple. It's not about me. It's not about any of that. It's about what God's going to do through me. And just thinking about me having not been there and having not done the martial arts camp, and that wouldn't have had the roll-off effect of that little girl got to get saved at that camp because I was there. The whole thing is just, you just do. All right, you know when to push, and you know when it's important enough that I can set aside my own feelings and my own little pain for a little bit just to be able to go and serve God for a week, because they do and endure so much worse on a daily, I feel like, than just me putting myself aside for a week and being able to go and help.
And Kathy, kind of the same thing to you, because, I know last year you went and we had a lot of hype going in and everything else, but you knew the physical toll that was going to take. Last year we were kind of clueless what it was going to take. Even the first 5-hour drive over the mountain, I was going insane. That's the worst part of the trip to me, But what made you do it again, knowing, you signed up for this twice now. What made you say, I'm going to be faithful to this even though it's not going to be easy, and you knew that?
I think it was just being able to see those people again. They just touched me so much last year, and they gave so much more to me than I feel like I gave to them. So I wanted to go back so I could give more and be more and do more, because I got so much out of it last year. I just wanted to be able to give them some of that back.
And I think that's for all of us such a good lesson of faithfulness. When you just don't feel like you can anymore, go back to everything we just talked about. I can't do this. It's impossible. It's not impossible for God. Someone trust him one more day. I don't know if I can face that person again. I don't know if I can face that job again. I don't know if I can face that thing again. I don't know if I can go through that trial again. I don't know if I can continue to witness to that person. All that stuff that you have, that's where faithfulness comes in, because now it's not about your circumstances. It's about who Christ is in you and the character. That's that fruit of the Spirit of faithfulness. Just showing up again and serving one more time and saying, okay, Lord, all for your sake. What do you want to do? And just watching that. And you never know who else is watching. You never know who else is seeing what you're doing. I was kidding Reagan one day. So she taught the martial arts, and there was this little guy named Angel. Angel was about 12 years old, and Angel was smitten with Reagan. I mean, he was like, wow. And and it was so funny because I watched Angel. He kept kicking this tree limb, and he kept turning around to see if Reagan was watching, and she wasn't watching. He'd kick it again. She'd turn around. And I thought, Reagan, would you watch that poor kid before he hurts himself? And he's kicking. But it was so funny because I think about that. I don't know how long that kid would have done that if I wouldn't have got her attention. He was going to do that until they got their attention. Sometimes I feel like that when I pray. God, I need you to see me. God, I need you to see me. God, I need you to see me. Because when I pray sometimes, I know y'all all think that people that serve as pastors and elders, that we just hear from God 24 hours a day and it's all hunky-dory and everything's fine. Hunky-dory, that's a great word. It's all, but let me tell you, I experience just as many times, if not more times than you do, where, God, did you hear me? And God says, do you want your circumstances to be better, or do you want to be better? And by that, I don't mean my health. I mean, here's what I've learned. I've always concentrated that I may know him and the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of his suffering. How many of you like the fellowship of suffering part? Not me. But I have to pray that. But I like the power of his resurrection part. And God said to me one night, I need you to ignore the power of resurrection part, and I need you to ignore the fellowship of suffering part. Here's what I need you to understand, that I may know him. I just want you to know me. And when you know me, the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of his suffering will almost feel like the same thing, because I'll be in both of them with you. So may know him.